and another thing about the brain is, if I get the hammer, I smash my finger here, legitimate, aching, damaged finger, and somebody that's very well versed in the brain, they pick out the spot that they know is pain in my finger, they stimulate it, electrically stimulate it, because we're all these electrical charges going through it. I have no clue which one is which. The legitimate pain is the same as the stimulated pain in my brain. And likewise, when I'm coping with something, my perception is huge. I did my dissertation on self-efficacy. And if you're aware of self-efficacy is our perceived capabilities. So if I don't think I can do something, it's not happening. I might stumble upon it. I might, accidentally do something and then go, oh, I could do this. But if we've got it in our head that we cannot accomplish something, if we got it in our head that God will never accept me, or I'm a hopeless case, then it's not happening. And the statement as it goes, I don't believe what I see what I believe. Now that isn't all cases, but we kind of rationalize and think we believe what we see. If I see it, I'll believe it. Well, you know what? That's really not the case. Just start getting into discussion over politics, and you understand that people see one way, and that's it. There is no discussion. You could make the most convincing argument going, and it's not going to happen. They're not going to be convinced. So we as Christians want to make sure we try to not be in that mode of we believe something first, and then that's the only way we're going to see it. All right. Research suggests that people are typically unaware of why they're doing what they are doing. But when asked for a reason, we'll give one. We might not have a clue why we responded the way we responded, but half of the people would say, okay, I don't know. I don't know why I did that. The other half will go, they'll make up a reason, and they'll be very convincing that that's why they did it. They did a study. There's another study from a book called Stumbling on Happiness. Think you know what makes you happy? The question mark. So they did these little things where you're watching a screen, and they do the subliminal thing where they flash up a word that you can't consciously see it, you don't even know that you saw it, but your subconscious saw it. All right, so they flash up on the screen, flash up on the screen the word hostile. Well, shortly thereafter, people had a negative attitude. They flash up the word elderly. They observed the people in the room, they started moving slower. Okay? They flashed up, the third word was stupid. And then they get in tests, and people perform poorly on the tests. And this isn't making stuff up. This is just the way, how impactful our subconscious mind is. It's fascinating to me. I continuously study it. I try to learn more than I can about it. And so when you think of that impact, and I have this little theory, and I'm going to find a study on it one day, but I have a claim that you line up 10 people, 10 families in the room. You put their parents here, and you put the kids here, and let's just throw away the obvious, looks or whatever. You could put a mask on or whatever. And I guarantee, I have the little claim that 8 or 9 out of 10 people, I could just see the way they walk, and I'll tell you what kid belongs to what parent. Just by the way they walk, their gait. And it's amazing. If you ever look at it and you see it, you'll catch it. And so what happened with that little kid? His parent didn't consciously sit down and say, you got to walk this, I got this little strut or whatever I got, or I walk on my tippy toes, or whatever it is. But that kid watches that parent from the time they're growing up, and that's what's impressed upon their brain, and that's the way they walk. That's their gait. And so how much more do we just pick up stuff? So how important is it that we not listen to trashy music, that we not watch trashy TV shows? Because subliminally, we are picking that garbage up. I know, I make it a point now. I usually wear my headphones on my bike, which is probably not a good thing. But, know, I figure as long as I stay on that side of the road, I wouldn't do it whether I'm hearing, you know, Van Halen or not. But it helps me ride my bike. So in any event,
How about one plug in, one plug out?
yeah, that would be the thought.
Not that I want to solve the problem.
Yeah, right. But if I listen to a song before I start riding that bike, that song, I could do a 2 or 3 hour bike ride. That thing will just be bouncing around my head for the rest of that ride. And it's because on the bike, I'm kind of out of my element thinking. So I'm not thinking too much. I'm just physically exerting myself, which I enjoy. I like to get rid of the trying to think through too much. So the last thing that was left in there, I'm not putting anything else new in there. It's just bouncing around. It keeps bouncing around. There's nothing to replace it because I'm riding the bike. I'm focusing on riding the bike and I'm enjoying the scenery, but I'm not really thinking too much. So that thing just keeps bouncing around in my head. You know, every once in a while, Mom loves to go to polka dances, so we'd go to polka dances. And, you know, you want to get something bouncing in your head. I mean, for all night, you're going, oh, gosh, I got to get this polka out of my head. Any zone check in the versatones, I don't want to hear for the rest of the night, you know. So the subconscious is powerful. And the way Keller was talking about, I think, focusing on Jesus and setting your mind on things above. And I think, you know, that's the ultimate, setting your mind on things above. But we really don't have a good vision of heaven. So I got fascinated with this subconscious thing, and book after book after book after book I read, there was no research in it. It's called, they have what they call, there's a thing called face validity. So when you're doing experiments and research, face validity is something that you look at and say, that makes sense. That really makes a lot of sense. Doesn't have any kind of data to support it, but it just is sort of common sense. So for example, gravity is a concept that science, they have no clue why it is. They can give you some scenarios around here and sort of describe what happens with gravity, and it's kind of face value. Yeah, if I have this thing and I drop it, that's gravity, it pulls to the earth, but they cannot hardcore explain what gravity is. So, we've got to look at our reasoning and say, you know, what's going on in our lives, and get this subconscious targeted somewhere else. So there's a theory out there that I go, oh my gosh, I knew there had to be a theory out there with the subconscious. I just never knew what it was. How do you transition? How do you make changes? And there's a number of them, but one of them that I looked at is called cohesion theory. And cohesion theory is, I used to be of the opinion, well, you know, you got to hunker down, pick up your bootstraps, and just get rid of this thing. You know, that's what you do. You just force through it. Well, cohesion theory says, first you identify the problem. Whatever the issue is, whatever the thing that you want to change in your life, you identify it. The next thing you do is you integrate it into something else. You blend it. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the martial arts of Aikido. And Aikido is the martial art that does not fight as much as if someone lunges at you with a punch, you don't counter and go back. You grab their arm, they're throwing their weight towards you. You grab their arm, you throw them the other way. You know, and so when they're coming at you, which it makes great sense if I were a female and I'm trying to get defensive things. A female, I don't care what they do on Charlie's Angels or on the TV, they make it like women can kick men's butts, and you know, this little scrawny 110-pound woman, she's kicking butt and, you know, beating all these guys up. It just ain't happening. I mean, if you ever look on some of these fights or whatever, there's not even any thing that's going to say, well, the women want to compete with the guys in the Ultimate Fighter. It's not even close, because most guys will be able to beat even the best martial arts girl unless she kicks them in the nuts. It's just not going to happen. The strength, you grab them and you hold them, they're just not going to be able to pull out of that. Okay, so you have to use this Aikido principle. Same way with your subconscious. It doesn't register, and it doesn't register not doing something. If you say, people say, I gotta quit smoking, it's not really gonna happen. I mean, some of them do, you know, they can do that, but chances are they replaced it with something positive. They got convinced in their eyes that I want better health. I want my teeth to be white. I don't want to smell anymore. I don't want to be going outside when it's 10 degrees and having to get a nicotine fix. Okay? They reason all these things and they move towards something that is more desirable, just like Keller was saying. So the cohesion theories say, I integrate with, I'm not fighting this thing that I have to quit, but I integrate it with something else. So, and then I transition into the new habit. Because in your brain, if you read anything about your brain, we form neural pathways. And these neural pathways are, in your brain, it's called plasticity. Your brain is one of the few parts of your body that forms new pathways, neural pathways. And people think, oh, I'm getting older, I'm forgetting everything. No, you're not. You can let your brain atrophy. And older people, if you notice, a lot of them, they just sit there and watch TV. Well, you want to let your brain go and start getting forgetful? Sure enough, that's a great way to do it, because you're not going to form any new neural pathways just watching TV. If you play music, if you walk, if you read, if you do things that stimulate your mind and do new things, you will not remember as fast as when you were younger, but you can remember as much. When you think about scholars, it's like one of the few areas where older people are better. You know, in colleges, you get a professor that's, I remember Professor Williams at Regent University. The guy was in his 80s, sharp as a tack. I mean, because he kept reading, he was challenged, he stimulated his students, they stimulated him. He kept his brain sharp. And so that's a myth when people say, I'm getting older, I'm just forgetting. Well, you're probably getting older and you're just sitting on your butt too much and you're not reading, you're just watching movies.